On National Signing Day, I had to make the toughest decision of my life, but in the end, I decided to stay home and play for Kirk Ferentz and the University of Iowa. It was going to be tough getting on the field as a third stringer, but I thought that with Iowa's QB struggles, I had a chance to get some playing time. I knew that my impossible sliders would be even harder in college, and I got killed on my first 2 snaps of practice. But even though I could barely see over the line at 5'5", I started to get into a rhythm, and my first practice was going way better than I expected. I was hoping to win the backup quarterback position since Brian Ferentz's offense definitely needed some help, but I was taking some big hits and getting rattled, and it was definitely hard when every sack I took made the coaches lose all their trust in me. My first practice was all over the place, but I was excited to be in Kinnick Stadium as a player for the first time, even if it was just from the sidelines. Spencer Petras was actually having a pretty good day, but our offense was struggling due to Brian Ferentz's bad play calling, and we were only up 5 with 3 minutes left in the game. Luckily, our running game came through to kill the clock, and I was happy to watch my teammates get our first dub of the season. My second college practice started out rough as my pass got picked off on the deflection, and I didn't think it was fair that the coaches lost trust in me for such a crazy pick. I continued to struggle with my accuracy and take sacks, and things were just not going as well as I'd hoped. That week, our game against FCS Midwest was actually close, but for some reason, instead of going for the onside kick, they just kicked the ball deep after scoring, so we ran the timeout for our second win. During my next practice, I was really shaky, and to be honest, I had the yips. My only positive plays were on scrambles, and even though I was making the right reads, I just could not throw the ball straight. I felt like a different player from the kid who had led City High to the state championship last year, and it was looking like I'd never be the starting quarterback at this rate. Going into our rivalry matchup against Iowa State, I had no hope of seeing the field, even though both offenses were putrid. Iowa State got on top at the end of the half with a Hunter Decker's touchdown pass, and our punter Torrey Taylor was spending a lot of time on the field. But in the third quarter, Spencer Petras had a pocket that I was very jealous of after getting creamed in practice all week, and after he just stood there like a statue for about a half hour, he threw a strike, and we were able to punch it into the end zone and retake the lead. Iowa State was driving, but Deckers threw a terrible ball for an interception. Spencer had another great pocket to ice the game with this pass, and we were Assico champions after Hunter Deckers stunk up Jack Trice Stadium. I was determined to have a better practice this week, and I developed a new strategy. I started looking to scramble first and only threw to receivers who were wide open to avoid possible picks and get my confidence up. This was working really well as I was slowly able to rebuild my coach trust, and I had my best practice yet. Spencer Petras led us to an easy win against Western Michigan, and we had cracked the top 25 after starting out 4-0. Our next game against Minnesota would be our toughest test yet, but first, I had to have another good practice, and even though I was having success scrambling, I was still having trouble with my passing. I continued to take safe plays, and I was finally starting to earn the trust of Kirk Ferentz, but then I coughed up the ball and all of my progress was gone once again. I was so frustrated that I just started chucking up deep balls, but nothing was working at all. Watching our game against Minnesota from the sidelines, I was feeling down after my bad practice, and it wasn't helping my mood that we got down early and our defense was having trouble keeping Mo Ibrahim bottled up. After going down 21-3, we tried to make a comeback, but it was too little too late, and we took our first loss of the year. I was determined to practice better this week, and I got cooking with a nasty juke. I'd really improved my vision as well as working on my speed and acceleration, and I was running circles around the Iowa defense, but I fumbled the ball, which killed my coach trust again. I was so frustrated that I just decided to let it rip again, and I actually hit a deep pass, but I was still missing wide open receivers for touchdowns, and I couldn't understand why. It was at least a better practice than last time, but we were taking on a top 10 Michigan State team, and this one was looking like it was going to be tough. Our offense was dead in the water, and I was starting to get worried about playing for Brian Ferentz's offense when the play calling was this bad, and we were honestly just outmatched against Michigan State. Despite our losses, I was feeling better going into the next week of practice, and something just felt different for me. I was slowly starting to figure out how to succeed in our outdated offense, and I was thrilled when I finally hit my first long touchdown pass of the season. Just a few reps later, I rolled out and hit another one, and I was finally starting to get out of my own head and into a rhythm. I closed out practice with a long scramble, and after today, I was hoping that Coach Ferentz would at least try me out in a Wildcat package. I carried that positive momentum over into my next practice where I continued to play it safe, and my coach trust was finally starting to stack up. I was playing it smart and throwing the ball away anytime I felt pressure at all, and on this play, I ran away from everybody on this elite Iowa defense, and I had finally earned enough coach trust to challenge for the backup quarterback position. I spent the rest of practice chucking the ball out of bounds to avoid losing any points, and I was so excited for my first position battle. But first, we were playing in the shoe against number 6 Ohio State, and I knew we were probably going to get killed in this game, but we actually started things off pretty well as Spencer Petras connected for 2 early touchdown passes. Luckily for us, CJ Stroud was out for this game, and backup Kyle McCord threw a red zone pick, so we were hanging with the Bucks. OSU finally hit a long touchdown pass, but we answered with a field goal to go up 10. Late in the third quarter, Ohio State was driving, and I thought we were in trouble for sure, but our defense was making big plays to keep them out of the end zone, and Ryan Day made the surprising decision to run for it on 4th down, and we stuffed it. Despite the weird coaching decision, the Buckeyes predictably made it a game with an 85-yard touchdown pass with a couple minutes left in the 4th. We picked up a huge first down, and all we had to do was run the clock out, but for some reason, Brian Ferentz was still calling pass plays, and instead of taking a knee, Spencer Petras chucked a deep ball for a pick. I couldn't believe what I was watching, but luckily Jack Campbell saved us with a pick, and we had pulled off a gigantic upset in Columbus. We finally had a position battle against Alex Padilla, and I copped a 1-week boost to make sure I was at my best. I was determined to overcome the obstacle I'd been facing all year, and with the way position battles worked, I was able to loosen up and try to make big plays without worrying as much about making mistakes. It wasn't helpful when my receivers were dropping passes and I was misfiring on easy throws, but I continued to fight like I had all year, and I started to get into a rhythm with some completions. Since I got off to a rocky start, I had to finish up the practice perfect to win the backup quarterback job, and after throwing some dots, I only had 2 reps left to prove myself, and I scampered down the sidelines to finally move up on the depth chart. I was so happy to be on the field, even if it was just to hold kicks, but late in the game against Northwestern, they scored a touchdown pass to go up 1, and Spencer Petras had to lead a game-winning drive. Unfortunately, we were just going backwards, and we had to punt the ball out of our own end zone, and I watched Northwestern run out the clock to hand us an upset. Our Big Ten title hopes were in the gutter, but I had a ton of newfound confidence after becoming the backup quarterback as a true freshman, and I was making our defense look silly in practice. We had a huge rivalry game against Wisconsin, and things were looking tough in the 4th quarter, but we hit a long touchdown pass, and we were back in the game after a stop on 3rd down. I watched as Spencer Petras began to march us down the field, and he hit Deontay Vines down the sideline for the biggest play of the season. Graham Mertz almost got it all back with this absolute bomb, but his receiver dropped it, and we held on for the win thanks to Spencer Petras' amazing performance. I had another great day of practice, but Spencer was clearly the man for the job at QB. He was the leader of this team, and he had defied expectations and become one of the best passers in college football this year. I was honestly happy to see him succeed, even though I was his backup, because he had been a great mentor to me in my freshman season. Coach wasn't going to let me into another game until bowl week so I could keep my redshirt status, and we got mopped up by Michigan. This Iowa team was definitely up and down, but I was feeling it in practice, and on one of my scrambles, I literally juked out the entire Iowa defense and ran it in for a touchdown. We were playing our final regular season game against Nebraska in the snow, and for some reason they were actually good this year, so we unfortunately took a loss. I was really relaxing into the Iowa offense, and I had started to show Kirk and Brian Ferentz that having a quarterback who didn't have cement blocks for legs could actually be a good thing. I continued to make smart reads, and I had earned enough trust from the coaching staff that they told me I was going to be lined up to start next season. We played in the Quick Lane Bowl against Toledo, and Spencer Petras led us to an easy win to cap off this solid season. Alabama won the national championship as usual, and I was excited to lock down the starting quarterback position to challenge them next season. I put a lot of work into this video, and I was experimenting with a new style, so be sure to leave me some feedback in the comments. But really, I just appreciate y'all watching. Have a good one. Peace.